Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Disc-ussions, where we talk movies, music, and everything in between. I'm your host, as usual, Adrian, aka Move Bensis, with my host here, as usual.
Hey, I'm Daniel, aka Rated DG13, and this is take two.
Yeah, full disclosure, this is our second time recording this video because the first time the audio got real messed up. So, yeah, like you said, take two. Try again.
It's why I take notes, so that I always remember, just in case, however any allotted time, it takes for us to, actually get together or something like this, it'll always be fresh in my memory, so we're just gonna try to continue this as naturally as possible.
Yes.
A few other things have happened since then, which will, kind of preface our recommendations. So, first of all, I wanted to pay tribute to David Lynch, who died recently. And I just wanted to acknowledge how huge of an influence he's had on not only just how I view movies, but just how I've been able to kind of take in life as a whole. It sounds super corny, but at the same time, there's a lot of value in just following your instincts and not being afraid to completely trust yourself and the things that you're passionate about. And while that does require a certain amount of talent for it to actually, be good, it also helps to just not let anyone convince you otherwise that the things that you feel strongly about aren't as valid of a thing to tell a story about, even if it's, presented in such a unconventional way. Because as evidenced by his following and, including someone like me who has gone through most of their movie fanatic life not really paying attention to him, I found it incredibly easy to get into him as soon as I was just given the opportunity. It's probably the fastest I've ever connected with a director, because there are plenty of directors that I love, but have just a few movies that I haven't seen from them because I just kind of allow myself to get around to them whenever I feel like it. I'm not always in a super big rush to binge a lot of filmmakers' stuff, just out of having a lot of variety in the things I watch a lot of the time. But when it came to David Lynch, I just had to know, because my first one was Lost Highway, which I saw for a video collaboration I did with Bacho, and something about it was super engrossing to me. That was, even though it wasn't I wasn't immediately something I fell in love with, an entire year later it hasn't left my mind whatsoever. And stuff about it that I didn't like initially has just been growing on me. And to varying degrees, that's what a lot of his movies have done in even less time. Is I was able to get used to what he was going for and figuring out his manner of exploring feeling over spelling everything out in a story specific way. I can't say I'm a full-blown expert on any one of his movies, but pretty much every time I've seen one, I've never gotten the feeling that it was pretentious, even as far as Inland Empire, where it's a 3-hour movie shot on a shitty camcorder, or I wasn't expecting to hit it off with that one at all, and yet there was still a lot of pretty engrossing stuff in that one. And it goes to show just how much you can accomplish when you're certain about what kind of mood you're trying to communicate. And that's just what I love so much about him. I'm almost done with Twin Peaks, and it's evolved into something just so incredible that a lot of franchises should strive for when it comes to calling back to past storylines or characters. There's stuff that was set up all the way back in the 90s that are finally getting paid off in a way that you wouldn't have expected, and yet it doesn't feel like it's trying so hard to recapture that aesthetic that the original fans loved, which is why they hated Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, the movie, around that time it came out, because it was what he was trying to go for from the beginning, and because he had limitations with the channel that it was on at the time. This new show, Twin Peaks The Return, because of how much TV has evolved since then, he was able to finally capture exactly what he wanted from the beginning. And yeah, just I love how even within his own franchise, he's completely changing and always experimenting with things that differ and improve on the last thing. I would say even if you're intimidated by his stuff, but you're like even a little bit curious, there's even like The Elephant Man and The Straight Story, which are super accessible and amazing in their own right. And if you feel like you're just like fed up with movies nowadays because like they're becoming more and more meaningless and, you know, just kind of cynical, David Lynch showcases exactly the kind of stuff that I want to see as far as like the sincerity in your art. It doesn't have to be as weird as him like all the time from everyone. I don't need that from like, especially considering like people who try to recapture like a Lynchian vibe and like usually fail when it comes to like trying to do that on their own without having like an idea of their own and just get like wanting to ape his style. I think what's more important than just being something that'll like completely change the game or like, you know, just being weird for the sake of weird, which, you know, again, David Lynch isn't. Like there's always a point even if you don't immediately understand it. And I don't mean that to sound like a pretentious dick. I mean, just like every single movie I've seen from him, there's always a thesis that like I can grasp onto immediately and see throughout the movie. So it keeps it from being just complete nonsense. But I think what's more important than that is to always be sincere in your art. And I think there's something to be said about something like Twin Peaks, where it's like, yeah, it's super 90s and on its sleeve about its inspiration from like soap operas at the time. And like you watch it and you think like this is just ridiculous. It's like it's so unabashedly corny, and the way the characters act and the music swells, but it looks you in the eye and just doubles down on it and just like keeps on going further and further to the point where you understand that like, yeah, these characters are important to the people who made them, and it's able to draw its strength from just the sheer amount of care that was put into it. And yeah, that's where the real loss for, you know, people like him. My heart goes out to his family and his friends, and yeah, just I'll always value this experience I've had with him specifically. I hope for more people to look into his stuff now more than ever, considering just how movie theaters seem to be dying because no one's like caring about like most
watching
things
them on your phone. You're all watching on the phone. Watching movies on your fucking phone.
And the best part about it, I said this last time, but I watched most of his movies on my fucking phone. It's like, and it didn't really detract from the experience. It's just like I live with people and I don't necessarily need to be freaking them out.
Yeah.
I can focus on it better. I have good headphones. It's like, yeah,
I would not watch Eraserhead in any kind of like public setting unless like it was already like organized beforehand, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't say much, just because I'm not as invested or like not into the work, but I just haven't seen a whole lot from him. But I will say, like, the little I have seen, like I just mentioned Eraserhead, and Eraserhead was one of those first movies like that, kind of like these avant-garde, kind of more dreamscape-like kind of interpretable movies. One of like the first one I ever saw was Eraserhead. Saw it when I was like 17, and that is definitely one of the movies that got me into just the art of like filmmaking. And I think you're right, there's not a whole lot of directors really out there like David Lynch trying to do what he was doing, or even ones that are as well known. I mean, the only one I can think of is like, I don't know, like Charlie Kaufman, but even then I wouldn't say he's like very well known. Like, come on, like, you know, you're well known when you're in like 20% of like the Cleveland Show.
You're right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I saw a post like literally like an hour ago where it was like David Lynch is in 22 of like the 88 episodes of Cleveland Show. So like if you watch a random episode of Cleveland Show, you have like a 1 in 4 chance of seeing David Lynch in it. But yeah, like I just don't think there's other big time directors that, even if you just have like passing interest in movies, like someone would know who he is. But like there's not really a whole lot of modern guys I could really say that about. Maybe like Robert Eggers.
At the very least, it's few and far between.
Yeah.
There are plenty of auteur directors that are experts in their craft and have their own like immediately recognizable voice.
Or most of the time, I'd say it's like horror.
Yeah.
Because just people are, especially people our age, are just like really into horror movies for some reason. Even though like I think I think horror movies are like the most bastardized like genre. Like they just have the most like, I wouldn't say like garbage. They're just like the I guess what's the word, saturated.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for. There's just a lot being made right now, and but like most of them aren't very good.
Yeah. I would say like horror and action probably the most. In the mid 2000s to like the 90s, it was probably comedy. I feel like people are they want more of a reason to like go to a theater to watch something like No Hard Feelings. It's like that's like straight to streaming like quality. Yeah. Movies used to come out like that all the time in theaters, and they used to be like huge.
Yeah.
Whereas like nowadays people are much more aware about like, is this a theater experience, as opposed to like just, you know, a decent like Judd Apatow comedy, which you know, not really bashing on him. I think there's a place for that in movies, and I see where people are coming from when they say that we don't get movies like that specifically often. Not that they're like special, but I feel like there's something to be said about like just the overindulgence that like Hollywood is into right now, because like we can just do anything with any amount of money, to the point where it's like we are, you know, just like slowly losing, you know, the connection with audiences and like what they want to see as far as like their experiences captured by someone who understands them. And yeah, it's like specifically like relating it back to David Lynch, is that like he has his own specific way of taking these extremely relatable desires, like, or desires and fears, like following your dreams, as generic as that sounds, but like what is it like when you wake up from the dream and the actual reality that you have to face, or a relationship that's been going on life support for so long, to the point where like all your pushed down feelings that you don't immediately bring up or like fight about, you feel like you're fine, but like it's just building up slowly and slowly until like it turns into something ugly. I was able to just like immediately get it after all this time. I thought I just had to like be there for him, as far as like Twin Peaks was huge at the time when it came out, and like that was probably his most relevant as far as like the public eye goes. It just felt like something that a lot of people described in a way where it's like you had to be there for that specific era because that's what it was aping, and it feels weird to like go back to now, as far as like the kind of TV drama that it was satirizing at the time. But I was still able to get like a ton out of it, and as it goes on, like of course there's that rough patch in like season 2, which is weird because it goes from like 8 episodes to 22 episodes for some reason. And it feels like even that first chunk of season 2 is like its own season, because like it wraps up a specific plot line, and it just doesn't know where to go from there, because like David Lynch like left the show because he was disappointed with what they made him do as far as like revealing certain things that he wanted to keep secret for the entire, just forever.
Yeah.
And he comes back towards the end of it. He immediately, like, you know, because it's like the finale, he throws like middle fingers to the audience that like, you know, was expecting this certain thing from it, and the studio that was keeping him from doing what he wanted. And going forward, it's just been entirely his soul, you know, bared for everyone to see, with no one getting in his way. And yeah, like Twin Peaks: The Return is like one of the most, like, I'm not a TV person regularly, and this is probably gonna be one of my favorite TV shows going forward, honestly. Like specifically The Return, I'm gonna be coming back to this one like just so often to like not only figure out what's going on even further, but just like it's so beautifully balanced in the drama and the comedy. It's hilarious, and the horror, and like it's so, David Lynch got dangerous when he got access to CGI. There's like some there's a point in the show that's like as panic attack inducing as the bomb scene from Oppenheimer. Like honestly, like I wasn't expecting something like that. It was like that specific feeling, and I was just like, I was shocked that like he had the resources to pull something like that off.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, like I said, I haven't watched much, but the 2 movies I have seen, which are Eraserhead and the original Dune, with he's also in Twin Peaks.
Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah,
that's the last one I haven't seen, Dune.
Yeah, man, the things he thinks up, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone told me that like everything in either Dune or even those little bits with in Eraserhead were just all just him, because the things he tries to do are really just like off the wall, really just like out there, and really tries to, especially in Dune, we really tries to capture this like completely separate like alien, like almost like ecosystem, like this political just kind of this government, like just the way everything looks, and the way everything's portrayed is really like really fucking out there. Especially because at the beginning of the movie they literally wheel in this giant like fucking like fetus like alien.
Oh yeah.
Like in this like tank, and it looks fucking nuts. And when that movie was made in like the mid '80s,
yeah,
and it's like, damn, they were doing this shit in like the mid '80s. Like I can't imagine like the shit he can like think up with something like CGI where you could really just do anything.
Yeah. So rest in peace, David Lynch. And check out his movies, audience.
He's definitely on that short list of like directors I've dipped my toe in. Like I've seen a couple of their movies, and I want to like watch all their stuff. Just haven't, just one of those things. You don't got a million hours in a day. So
yeah, I don't blame anyone for it. It was just like, for me specifically, like I've never experienced something like this with a director where it's like I have to see everything from him like immediately after seeing their first thing.
I definitely feel that way with Scorsese. I remember watching Goodfellas also around when I was like 16, 17, being like, man, I need to watch like a lot of this guy's movies. And I think at this point I've seen like half or like 60% of like his filmography already. So maybe when he dies, I'll talk for like 30 minutes about how I like Scorsese. But no, I definitely understand that.
Yeah. I guess we also just to completely just ruin the vibe, we saw Captain America 4, and I don't want to talk about the movie as much as I just kind of want to talk about like
it's what really it's about. That's what really all this is about. And
what does this mean in the grand scheme of like just action movies, like theater movies, like this universe?
I would say Marvel in general, but like I feel like Marvel's been like this for the past like 4 years. They've just been not consistent at all. Not saying that they were super consistent.
Yeah.
Like pre Endgame or pre Infinity War, but at least like most of the movies were pretty good.
Yeah, they met a standard, and the worst part about it is that all of its problems are nothing new. You can pick apart the story if you want to, but the actual core issues with it are just like a sign of like complacency, and they have like no intentions of like actually improving where they're going with this. No sense of like reassurance, like no, this is gonna be important eventually. It's just floundering around for like 2 hours for no reason, and it's just like the setup of the story is just like immediately screwed from the start, because it's a MacGuffin from Eternals with villains from the Incredible Hulk, starring Falcon from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And it's just like the least interesting things from this entire thing compounding on itself, directed by the guy who did the Cloverfield Paradox. It's just like there was no hope for it.
It's just, I think I think pre-Endgame, the movies were leading up to something.
Yeah.
It was building upon each other, but they were also... It also seemed like they had independent stories to tell as well. But, like, also, like, a bigger contribution to the larger, like, MCU.
Yeah.
But it just feels like nothing. Like I'm sure most of the time we're not even going to talk about what happens in the actual movie, because just nothing happens, kind of. Like, it's a vague, okay, like, oh, this would be... Like, I said this to you before we started recording, but I really think this movie just came like 16 years like way too late.
Yeah. Like,
if this was... Because that's all I could think about while watching it, was like, damn, this should have just been a Hulk movie.
Yeah. Like
it has Hulk themes, it has Hulk villains, it takes a lot from that first Incredible Hulk movie. This should have just been a Hulk movie. Like, if you reworked this and went back in time like 10, 11, 12 years ago, like, you could have made this like Hulk too. Like, this seems like something, like, there's a lot of payoffs from the first movie. There's a lot of, you know,
There's
like,
a direct relation to the villain.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And
Like,
I understand why they couldn't have done that, because I think he's owned by like either Universal or Paramount.
yeah.
So like they just couldn't do anything with him for like a long time, and
But also, just think for
yeah.
a long time they've just struggled with the Hulk and the idea of the Hulk, and it's not even just the Hulk. I think it's a lot of different heroes that they just don't. I don't know if it's Kevin fucking Feige or just like the writers they get, because that's another problem. It's just like, how many of these MCU movies can you say, oh, I know who directed that? Oh, I know that guy's name. I mean, you know, he directed the Cloverfield Paradox, but I'm sure you couldn't tell me like his actual like God-given Christian name.
Well,
you know?
No, it was something I looked up like right before it. Like my friend got like free tickets, and even he was like, yeah, his reviews haven't been great, but you know, they're there. And like
yeah.
just before the movie started, I just like quickly looked up, all right, is there like even 1% like this might be anything?
Yeah.
And that was the first thing that comes up, and I'm just like, oh my god. I was really considering leaving just like the first. Wow, I like, that's the thing, I can't even remember like what the joke was, but like the very first joke that's like uttered from the movie, I just like, I really wanted to get up because I knew the tickets were free, and I was like, we could just do anything else right now. We could do that. We could, but yeah. I stuck it out.
I mean, it's just I personally just don't think it's well, a lot of people have been saying just like utter just dog shit, because at least it might have been entertaining if it was just fucking terrible, like no good, like dog shit. But like,
yeah, there are worse things out there.
It's just like so bland and just uninteresting, and just again just feel like it adds nothing, and it's, I can't even, like, I guess just I'm trying to think of what it really adds to the greater like universe, and I guess adamantium, because that's what like my minimal enjoyment I got from this movie was like, oh cool, adamantium, nice, they're finally doing that, cool. But like these little just like trivia things for fucking comic book nerds like me, who know like every single fucking panel of every, well, not like literally every, but like just know a lot.
Yeah.
And so when they say, oh, adamantium, or like the leader, or like oh, I know what that is, oh cool, like that was like it. And like the whole time, like there are even some characters where I'm like, oh wait, who are these people? And my friend who I went to go see the movie with had to tell me, oh, he's from this one Marvel show. I'm like, oh, I didn't watch that. Like, oh, who's that? He's like, oh, he's from this other Marvel show. I'm like, oh, was that from Eternals? He's like, yeah, that's from Eternals.
Yeah, you say like, that, but like the movie itself understands that like no one actually cares about most of the things that they're referencing, so they're just gonna spell it out. They're just gonna like stop the story dead in its tracks to remind everyone, like, oh, by the way, this is from this one from a few years ago. And, like, it even got me thinking about like Aquaman from 2018. It's like that story is nothing special, but the director is just batshit. So like he turns it into something that's like that warrants the attention it got. It was ridiculous, and it wasn't smart. It wasn't like particularly clever, but the actual presentation of it, there was like effort put into, and the way like he shot the action scenes, how like he just like draws inspiration from his like horror background at some points, and like he takes like just a super basic, it's just like Lion King, Black Panther again. Like it's nothing special, but like it's coming from a filmmaker's like passionate, you know, kind of drive, and even, you know, Deadpool and Wolverine, which I wasn't a fan of at all. Like it's exclusively fan service and just throws all other story or filmmaking attributes that I respect to the wayside. Yeah. At the very least, you can tell that the people working on that cared. Like Ryan Reynolds cares about being Deadpool. You know, he cares enough to where it's like he wants to make something that people would want to see. You know, like I could understand why people were like clapping along to this. You know, and I think all movies should be at least one of two things, which is like interesting, you know, have like something meaty in the story or characters, or entertaining. And if you're just like this movie feels like embarrassed to exist, like it's made out of complete obligation, and I don't really understand why, because it's not setting up anything that'll really that's even like surprising to like Marvel fans. Even it's just like, yeah, I guess we're gonna start the Avengers again.
Yeah.
It's like you just needed like verbal confirmation, and that's
even
what the whole
like
movie was.
even the post credit scene, which I
didn't stick around for that.
I just did just at this point it's just like you're obligated to, because it's just like, well, you know,
I'm clearly not, because like they've like lost any and all meaning for like.
And no, it's good that you didn't, because it's nothing. It's literally nothing. It's literally Tim Blake Nelson just being like, oh, there's other universes, you know. I'm like, yeah, we've known that for the past like 5 years. That's all he says. He just says, oh, you think you're the only person? You think you're the only universe? Like, that means something. Like they didn't already announce this like 5 years ago and have made like 4 multiverse movies already.
It's expected at this point.
It's just like, yeah, like it's kind of like that, where it's like you didn't even need a post credit scene.
Yeah,
like this does nothing. This is like totally worthless, and presents no new information or teases about anything. Like, I remember when they used to use those to tease big villains and big like characters coming or big events about to happen, and now it's just like, oh well, we have to put a fucking post credit scene in it, so we'll just like do some vague like bullshit on something that everybody already knows about.
Yeah,
like, literally completely like a literal like waste of time. And I don't think it really goes down to like audiences, because I think, well, a lot of what I saw of people defending this movie are like saying like, oh well, it's just, I think we're just going to superhero fatigue, you know. It's that point of just people are getting tired of superhero movies, which I don't think is necessarily true. Maybe like a little bit, but I think people are just getting tired of just Marvel like slop. Just them just kind of making nothing unimportant movies like this, or like Eternals, or I wouldn't even say Deadpool Wolverine, because at least like you said, there's something behind that like passion. And a movie I feel similarly about is like Doctor Strange, the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what you were saying about Aquaman. Like that movie's okay. That movie's very it's all right.
Mm-hmm.
But there's clearly like a passion behind it. You could definitely tell that, oh, this Sam Raimi made this movie.
Yeah. Because
you can tell a lot of his like isms and stuff he's done in like Evil Dead, or even Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Is in that movie, so you can tell he had some kind of vision. But just this, and just like, I don't know, just 80%. I tried to start, because I've been on a bit of a Marvel like binge right now, mostly because of Marvel Rivals.
Mm-hmm.
Got like 300 hours in that game right now, I think. So I've just been consuming a lot of like Marvel comics and shows. Like, I've been rewatching Daredevil for the new season that's about to come out.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's good. But I tried to watch like She-Hulk, and I heard nothing good about it. But I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I got through like the first like 20 minutes. Was like, no, I'm good. And I think one of the main reasons is just like, it's either boring or just pandering, and just so basic. And a lot of people want to point to like, oh well, if you don't like it, it's because you're a misogynist, because you don't like women, because you don't like feminism. And it's like, it's not like I don't like those things, and it's not like you can't do those things in comic book movies or shows or whatever. It's just they do it in such a bland, tasteless, basic, spoon-fed kind of way. And it's just like, this is just not for me. This is for like, I don't know, like moms in their 40s, I guess. Or just someone with like a bare minimum knowledge of like feminism. Or just like follows like a feminism page on like Instagram and like likes their posts. And it's just stuff like that where it's just, there's kind of like what you were saying, there's just nothing here. It's just oh well, we gotta make this, or we have to do this, or we need this movie so we can introduce like one thing, and then like that's it. But even then, like, there's no larger contribution to the like larger MCU.
And mainly there's no excuse for it. Like,
yeah,
like just look back at like the first couple of phases for Marvel. Like, half of them, they are rinsing and repeating the same stuff. But what held them up was that they came from different creative voices, and they they more importantly got the characters right. They gave people a reason to care about them and want to see them in other things, which Falcon wasn't so bad in Winter Soldier. It's not necessarily that he's the worst person ever. It's just like, you need, if there's nothing of interest going on in the story, you need to have like just like these extremely creative action scenes. You need to have very good pacing to keep people interested. You need to not just like string people along for 2 hours. And I'm just like so annoyed by like all these movies that feel like they need to be like 2 hours.
There's one thing you can give it though. It is come under 2 hours. It is not 2 hours long. It's like an hour 58 minutes, I think.
That's a big difference.
Something else I just mentioned real quick, and this will probably be the last thing. It's just also just the quality of the actual like filmmaking. Like there are scenes in this movie that just look terrible.
Yeah.
Look bad, like very bad. Like there was that scene near the end with the big Hulk fight, which most of the time it looked alright. It looked like a big CGI monster destroying big CGI sets and big CGI like helicopters. But then the scene where they go to the cherry blossoms, the cherry blossom area, and he gives them that big like Naruto speech, like why he shouldn't be mad anymore. This is just one scene where they're focusing on Captain America, and like he just looks so off from the background.
Yeah,
it literally looks like a college student's like green screen like homework.
Yeah,
like it looked terrible, because and it's kind of like it's like what you said earlier. Like there's no excuse for that.
There's no vision.
Yeah,
because most of the time like they're so rushed. They have to like meet a quota every year to where it's like. They just have to like readjust constantly, and it's not. They have no excuse because they have all the money in the world. Like there's no reason this should be scheduled in this way, to work, because like that wasn't always a problem. There was a decent amount of like practical props and like really cool looking sets in those older movies, and like they would balance out the CG with something that you could immediately like the actor could like grab onto, and it wasn't just like character like staring off to the side almost constantly to where it's like you could just like have them looking at something under a completely different context. It's there's nothing more to say about it. Really, it's just
Harrison Ford was like particularly awful in this too.
There was one funny thing. I'll admit one funny thing. At the end, I don't know if he's like an actual comic book character, like the Falcon sidekick.
I think so. I'm pretty sure, yes.
He's talking about he's talking to Falcon after or I guess Captain America now, after all the fight's over, and he's like, man, growing up I always just wanted to be a hero, and you were always my favorite, Falcon. and he was like, because what made you special is that you never gave up. It's just like the most vague like detail like that could be attributed to any character, because no one's a fan of Falcon. Like he like at
is
the
that
very
what he said when he was a kid? Is that what he said?
Yeah.
How old is this fucking guy? How old is Falcon? What the fuck?
I mean,
I guess he's
that
been
was like 10 years
like,
ago.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess
that's
so.
crazy.
That's kind of oh god.
I'm paraphrasing. I guess he might have just been
because he was like I guess what was it? I'm trying to think. He was in Ant-Man. He was a part of Avengers then, and Ant-Man came out like 2015.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of works out. Yeah, and he helped them before that too. So like, when did Winter Soldier come out? That's when he was introduced.
Yeah, that's 2014.
Oh god, we're getting old. Oh my god, that was like 11 years ago. Yeah, but I guess that checks out. If he was like 8, it'd be like, or like 10 or 11 or whatever. I guess that kind of works out.
It's just like fill in the blank. Like who cares? Like who cares? They're trying to convince everyone that like that he's a worthy successor to Captain America, and like I wouldn't mind a successor if it was just like someone with a stronger character. I mean, like if Bucky took his place and this movie was exactly the same, like I would feel the exact same way. Yeah, it's like it doesn't matter if you don't actually like have any reason. Like you if not one person working on the movie cares about the main protagonist of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's kind of a big deal
Yeah.
for a superhero movie.
Yeah. And I think most people might say, like, well, you didn't actually watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, so he goes through all that. But it's just like, you know, when I pick up a comic book, you know, most of the time, I'm not starting from, you know,
Issue 1.
Yeah. Because that's like in the fucking 60s.
Yeah.
And, you know, that shit's kind of, and I've read a lot of like old comics like that before, and they are a little bit of a barrier. So there are lots of different ways people will just pick up issues, or you'll recommend certain arcs or certain runs, which are like just eras of that hero or that comic, when a certain person was writing it.
Yeah.
And people recommend a lot of that, and you most of the time you could just pick that up and, you know, get into it, at least like a good writer. And granted, you can't do that with everything, but there are still certain points where you can get the same things out without having to read, you know, 300 pages or like 15, 30 years worth of like back issues.
Yeah.
And, you know, they just didn't portray any of that in this fucking movie at all. It's just like a bland piece of white rice, or like a fucking like saltine cracker. And that's just the whole movie, a giant saltine cracker with extra salt.
Not even. It's not. It's a stale cracker with no salt.
Sounds like somebody we know.
Ratings.
Yeah, I guess you can go. Give you a rating for this amazing cinematic masterpiece.
Well, I'm not gonna pretend like this is the worst thing ever. It is mostly inconsequential. I think it does get to the point where there is just no reasonable excuse for it to be as just hollow and ugly and long as it is. Like, there's no excuse. So I think it is a 2 out of 10 for me. It's just like next to the worst thing ever, because like there's just no justification whatsoever for its existence. Now, you don't get the idea that's like, oh, I could see how this, like, the ideas they might have been going for, like, and they just like didn't pull them off, like, you know, like Eternals or something, or I guess that was their attempt at something artistic recently, and even that was not that didn't please anyone. But this is just like, you really just have absolutely nothing going on, and there's I can't pretend like I'm okay with that.
yeah, and I feel the same way. To me, it's way worse when you're bland and boring, opposed to just really, really, really bad, because I can at least laugh and get something out of it. But this is just like, but I personally wouldn't put it that low. I would give it a 4 out of 10, slightly below average, just because, at least me personally, the lower I go down on something, there's a certain point where it passes a threshold of like, okay, it's not boring anymore, it's just really bad, but like it's still like entertaining. And that's kind of where I put stuff like at the 1 and 2 like area, at least for me. But yeah, boring and uninspiring, 4 out of 10.
Yeah, so I guess we're moving on to the recommendations that we're catching up on.
We're behind a little bit. We've tried to talk about this specific one like 4 or 5 times. And I guess whoever's up there in the sky and the giant flying spaghetti monster just does not want us to talk about this fucking show. And I've seen this show now like twice all the way through. Not complaining, because I like it. But it is your recommendation if you want to give it a little intro.
Yeah, it's a sitcom created by Ricky Gervais from the mid-2000s called Extras, and it's just about him as an extra on all these different movie-making sets, and he's trying to get noticed as a professional actor, and down the line eventually get his own writing recognized and turned into his own show. And all the just horribly awkward situations that ensue from social climbing and foot and mouth syndrome and Yeah, it was. I was just like randomly recommended this, and I thought like, yeah, Stephen Merchant. I haven't really like I love him in pretty much every voice acting role I've seen him in. Like if the movie's like terrible, like he's probably gonna be like the best parts about it. And like, yeah, I've been trying to like get into more of his older stuff, and I haven't really seen much from Ricky Gervais. Pretty much Night at the Museum, Muppets, all that. Just pretty much just American Family movie guy for me for a long time, and I wanted to see what his comedy was like. And yeah, I was very entertained, and I love the direction that it takes halfway through the entire show. It's just like a couple seasons, kind of canceled prematurely, but it does like have just like kind of that like Firefly ending where it's like it doesn't feel final, where like we very clearly want to keep going with this, but if you have to stop there, I guess it's, you know, it's not the worst cliffhanger ending or anything. It's just like, damn, I really would have liked for this to continue, because
there was a lot of potential in it still.
Yeah, tons of potential. And like like it wasn't just it started by like, you know, he would be on a different set every episode, and he you know, it'd be like a fun like episode of the week, kind of like you can drop in, drop out, and like, yeah, it doesn't matter what order you watch it in. But like the through line of his actual like career was very interesting, and like you could tell like he wanted to go even further with it. And the final place he's at, like by the end of the show, it's like kind of this like bittersweet ending, I see it as, where he does find a success, but like at what cost, and how he's able to reconcile that with his friends, and what he values in the actual like art that he makes, and like what that means for actually being a success on television, especially around that time.
Yeah, I think the show was very funny. I did have a hard time at first getting into it, because it is a very British show. It's very dry and plain, and I would say takes a little bit to get going, especially at first, because it's really just him kind of like wandering around sets, like getting into different kind of, it's not even like large scale like shenanigans, it's just like mild like inconveniences.
Yeah,
most of the time. Like in that first episode, it's just him trying to get a line from the or trying to convince they're making a movie based off this guy who was in like this war. He's from a foreign country, and he's just like trying to convince the guy, like, oh, like, hey, you should like tell Ben Stiller, who's directing it, to like give me a line. And that's just like most of the plot of the episode.
Yeah.
And I think it can be a little boring, at least at first, but then once it really starts to get going with his want to move up in kind of like the world of like Hollywood, or I guess not Hollywood,
television.
I
don't know what
BBC
you call
verse,
that, but
yeah. British land, and like acting and all that, you know, he's trying to rise up on the ladder. It gets like more and more interesting, and I think it also gets just more and more funny as it goes on. Like I said, especially those first couple episodes have a lot of that kind of like dry British humor, like especially if you've watched like the original British Office. There's a lot of that's in this show.
Yeah, it's very
this dry delivery,
like conversational, and like the jokes aren't highlighted in like that typical American way, where it's like, this is where the punchline beat is.
Yeah.
It's like, it's, if you're like, that's what I loved so much about it, is that it felt like just so true to life, and like all these like just like super like subtle things going on, just like through like people's expressions of just like listening to someone saying like, just like sharing too much.
Yeah.
and like that's, there isn't necessarily like a laugh out loud joke, but like it just keeps like building and like squeezing your like your chest, as far as like, oh my gosh, how are they?
It's definitely a little bit like Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah,
where there's a lot of just like ass clenching, like I guess like makes your whole body like recluse and cringe like moments, but that's where a lot of the comedy comes from. It's just like the dialogue and the interactions between these kind of like, I don't want to say crazy, because they're not crazy. It's just like just a little bit off the wall, kind of off kind of people,
like
in
like
Andy's,
socially
yeah.
what's the word?
Not very socially aware.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, like people, or either that or just like these kind of crazy, over the top like celebrities that they interact with.
Man, they were good sports about it. It was reminding me a lot of Being John Malkovich, and how like the script just takes the piss out of like all these celebrities. Like they're just shown in such an unflattering light. And it's so funny, and like, and it works really well because like that like these people probably don't act like this in real life, but they're using their like actual names. But like that's just kind of like how celebrity culture is a lot of the time, where like you have these like rose tinted ideas about who people are. They'll show the scene that like they're working on and how that looks like through the final product, and then like when they cut to reality, they'll just be like, yeah, either down to earth and just like as flawed as like any other person who's like there's no difference between like an extra and them at a certain point, and like they just kind of, some of them like think that they're like hot shit because they're celebrities,
Yeah.
and it doesn't come off as like Ricky Gervais just like sees himself above all these people, because like he's portrayed as an idiot also. Like there are points where like anyone can recognize that like this like someone who's like really annoying or like just like too awkward to like make normal or like healthy conversation with someone, like to the point where it's like he'll like try to adjust and it's just not working. But there are other points where it's like he gets caught up on like this like something he doesn't want to deal with, like he doesn't want to confront someone about something, and it just like keeps snowballing until like it ruins his chances. Like it sets him back like another like 100 feet from his goal, because he just like he isn't honest with people, or he does think he's smarter than people, and he realizes like, oh, I just said like the worst thing I could possibly say right now. Like when Maggie when his friend Maggie is dating the black guy, and she's talking about like I don't know if I should like talk about black things with him or like avoid talking about black things with him, and he's just like, well, I mean, if you don't like reggae music, then you don't have to pretend to like reggae music. And then like she goes up to him after he says that to her, and she's like, I don't like reggae music, and her boyfriend is like, I mean, I don't like reggae music either. And she was like, well, I mean, even if you did like reggae music, I wouldn't like it. What kind of music do you like? Jazz, I guess. And she was like, well, I don't like jazz either. It's just like taking his advice in like the completely like wrong way. And he tries to like get her out of that, and like I think Samuel Jackson like joins the conversation. And he's like, well, it's not that he doesn't find you attractive. I mean, like, I'm sure she would like take your rod up her tailpipe in an instant. And like there's just this dead silence for like 15 seconds. Like everyone's just like dumbfounded, like they don't know how to respond to that. And, like his like he recognized the situation was like bad, but like he only made it worse because he thought that he was like separate from her awkward shortcomings, basically. And that's like a fault, a massive fault in his character, is that he thinks that like and it's a problem that like a lot of people face, is that like they know something feels wrong, but they don't know how to like undo it, like they don't know how to like escape from like how just like the downward spiral of like these conversations can get.
The biggest strength I think is in the show is the dialogue, and just how they interact with each other, and how they just have these like kind of awkward like silences and moments where it's just like, oh, did I really just say that, or did that really just happen? It's like, I think one of the worst ones that I found just hilarious is in that episode where he lies to that lady and tells her that he's Catholic to try to kind of, I guess, sleep with her. Which and you just think about that for like 2 seconds. You think, oh, well, like that doesn't make any sense. But to him, it like that's like the whole episode is him trying to do that. And at the end, when he's exposed for obviously not being a Catholic, she says that, and he's just like, well, I just thought, I that whole like sequence where he's just like telling them, or where he's talking to her sister, I think it was her sister, in the episode, who has like cerebral palsy, and he like tells her how he doesn't believe in heaven, and
Yeah.
like that's what he wanted to say originally, and it's just like, damn, dude, why would you even just say that like at all? And it's just those instances that just it really like get me, and that are really funny, but also just make me like recluse back into my skin, like that make my asshole like clench and like feel like it's getting sucked into my body is, and I think the way they set up stuff like that and do stuff like that a lot throughout the whole series is like really good and like really funny.
Mm-hmm. Another part I like is the Les Dennis episode where he's like he's like washed up as a celebrity, so he's like getting work at like these stage plays.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
My favorite scene from that episode is when they're in his dressing room, and he's talking about like back in the day, I used to get all these awards. I would need 2 dressing rooms. And then he looks over at like these couple of cards, and he was like, "Don't need 2 dressing rooms for that, do you?" And then just like, again, just like deafening silence. And then Maggie comes in with like, "Nope." Like the desperation to break the silence, but like having nothing to contribute. That's something that like happens constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
And I think what really helps is the balance of these situations where it's not it's at the expense of the main character Andy, but Andy's also kind of an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, it's like when he does get into these situations where whatever he does kind of snowballs, comes back and like bites him in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not too upset about it really, just because he kind of deserves it.
It's cathartic.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Like just like the whole time in the episode with like David Bowie, the only thing he's trying to do is just show off how like cool he is now, because he's like slightly recognizable.
Yeah.
And how like he's really just trying to get that recognition.
Mm-hmm.
But like he's just getting like a little bit of it, but just that little bit like that goes straight up into his head.
Yeah.
And but ends up like completely getting made fun of by David Bowie in that episode.
Yeah,
just,
because
like, it's embarrassing like song that he invents when he like talks to them for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, because he gets recognized for his sitcom, but it's like it gets so distilled by the time it actually reaches the final product, because like people take his like, and it's it's basically what he was trying to go for in this universe, is what this show is like grounded, relatable humor that like people like at the time, like it was like not as common to not have a laugh track, and they just felt like that's they took his idea that they found interesting, and they just like turned it into like every other sitcom, and it becomes successful. But like every time he brings it up, like he can't even, he's like ashamed to brag about it, because like he knows he can't back it up with something that he feels like he believes in. Like he knows it like it was falling apart like right by the pilot episode that they filmed. And there's this part that showcases his status as a celebrity, where he's trying to like get into this VIP area, and there's like a bench that's like going past the the velvet kind of ropes.
Velvet rope, yeah.
And he bribes, because he's not invited to the VIP area, he bribes one of the guards with like $60 or something, and he sits there, and then his friends come in and sit right next to him, and he's like, there isn't even like
it's the same
it's
bench
the same bench
with a rope on it. Yeah.
And it's like,
I think that I actually really like that scene, and just that joke, because I think it just really shows that this thing that he's trying to get to is just like,
it doesn't change who he is fundamentally,
like
or like how people
it just
see him.
It just changes what side of the rope he's on.
Yeah, he doesn't get any more respect.
Yeah, and it's out of the things that he's doing that like you said, like the sitcom is like moderately successful. And it's in that same episode where everyone at the fancy club and all the fancy people he talks to, when he mentions it, they say it's like, it's like a rubbish bad show.
Oh, that lowbrow.
Yeah. But then like goes to like the dive bar down the street with all the regular people, and they all up in arms, ready to like they cheer for him and
Yeah.
take pictures and want him to say the thing, and like they all love the show, and
like they're clearly not
know.
his like it's the kind of people that he hates in
Yeah.
real life, and he's interacting with them for the first time, and they're all just like they're all like creeps, or like they have like they're just like what does he say like over and over again? He's like the characters, the catchphrases, brilliant. And he just like he keeps like talking to him, and he's just like he keeps roping back to like that exact phrase. The characters, the catchphrases, brilliant. It was like he knows that this isn't what he was going for, and it's like all these people that he's getting attention from. He's like, yeah, he's getting attention from people, but like he completely like lost respect for himself.
Yeah, and it's not the people that he would want really attention and respect from.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of validates him as, I guess, like an actor, which is like basically kind of the whole thesis of the entire show, is just him trying to get respect and like just admiration for himself that he just does not get, and every time he tries, and especially because he tries in like kind of scummy ways, always comes back and like, you know, bites him in the ass.
Yeah, I love the Ian McKellen episode too, because that's where he's trying to get into something more respectable as an actor, and you know, artistic and serious, and his agent, who's Stephen Merchant, is just so
he's my favorite character in the show.
He's easily
he's
so
unbelievably hilarious.
Yeah, and like he just says literally anything that like comes into his head. It's like horribly embarrassing, and like he as his agent, like he's not good at like getting him the kind of work that he wants, and like even he doesn't respect him as an actor. Like he's like he criticizes him like as much as like everyone else. And in the Ian McKellen episode, he tries to get him something more serious, but like he doesn't like actually look into it, and it turns out that the character Ricky Gervais is going to be playing as gay, and he gets like really mad about it because like he also meets someone that he used to know who's like this super macho guy, and like is like very like he like easily like talks to women, and like he like shows him up at like every like moment basically, and he's like trying to prove that like he isn't like the same loser that he used to know. And they go to his play, and he's like trying to work around the fact that he's playing a gay character, and when it finally gets to the scene where like he has to kiss someone, he can't like write it off as like, oh, it's, you know, it's not necessarily when he has to like actually like show for it, he literally can't bring himself to do it. Like he can't let go of his ego and how he wants other people to perceive him as an actor, to actually like fall into this role. And he just like misses the point of like being an actor, and that's the shortcoming of his entire career, is that he wants to be seen a certain way, as opposed to like actually filling in the role, the roles that he's given.
The art of acting, being into the actual like performances and the kind of all the things that come with like falling into a role. Like it's really, for him, I think, most time just about like
optics,
and status, and how like kind of like you said, how people perceive you in just like doing things that you don't even really need to do. Like that scene where he's leaving his apartment and he sees that this other beautiful woman is like moving in, and he tells her that he's on like a sitcom, and she's like really into him, talking to him and stuff. And then later when he sees her again, he just feels the need to like lie and have his friend Maggie like come up to her and pretend that like she wanted like like an autograph, and like that ends up like ruining like the whole like attempt. And even though she like clearly honestly looked as if she was at least kind of like interested in him a little bit, but then after that it's just kind of like oh no,
because he tried to help himself.
It's kind of that same thing where it's just him trying to control how people see him. Like he didn't want to be perceived again as like a B-list actor. He wanted to just kind of seem like this big time, like oh I want your autograph and all that stuff, and ends up just like ruining it even more. And I think that's like a really strong aspect of the show, and where a lot of the comedy I think comes from, from just him like kind of just getting fucked over and over again.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention this, but like that Ian McKellen episode basically predicted Kevin Hart, because he said that exact thing.
Yeah,
He's like, I don't want to play gay character because I don't want people to think I'm gay. It's like,
yeah.
It's like, then why you're not even acting anymore?
Yeah.
It's like you just said that you can't act because like you don't think you can portray anyone who's not you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also love the Orlando Bloom episode, and how like he, again, just like that's the ego and the like entitlement that is shared with like literally anyone else. Like it's not exclusive to the celebrities, or to the actors. Like this he gets caught up in the fact that Maggie doesn't find him attractive, and like he tries like so hard, like even like pulling out like quote unquote statistics from like magazines. Like, oh, look at that, I'm voted top most attractive actor in all of Hollywood right now. And like it just like means nothing to her, because like why would it?
Yeah.
It's like, and like he there's like that other side character who's like, it's kind of like the female version of Greg, who's like the foil to Ricky Gervais, and like he actually is like getting proper work, and like he always like brags about
like
it to him.
Like his nemesis, basically. Like the guy who's always kind of like a step ahead of him of whatever he's doing at that moment. So he's always basically perceived as like, or perceives himself like better than Ricky Gervais's character.
Yeah. But Maggie has like that kind of equivalent character, and at least for this one episode, and she's like always giving her like backhanded compliments and like trying to set her up, when really like she's just trying to embarrass her.
Yeah.
And like at the final scene with her, like Orlando Bloom just comes up to her, and he's like, right, I'm gonna kiss you, and if you don't find me attractive after that, then I'll give up.
Yeah.
Like, and like it just takes her like completely like by surprise, and like it's happening because Maggie just doesn't care about like what people think about her.
Yeah.
Like she's just herself, and like the good and bad that comes with that. But she like shows her up like completely unintentionally.
Yeah.
And like they finish kissing, and she's like, nope, and he's like, all right. These like little like people who can't get over themselves. It's so funny.
Yeah, and I think it really just shows a lot of that, both through like a comedic and a serious lens of just I keep saying Hollywood, but it's just like a general term for like the acting business and the like entertainment industry as a whole. Just like people's like selfishness and the way they want to be perceived, and this ruthless climb up like ladders just to get what they want, or to be, and it's all about that and not the actual acting.
I also like the Daniel Radcliffe episode, which is the PR nightmare, because he he's like, they report on him after being in a restaurant, and he just like
that also has a really really good scene with Stephen Merchant,
where he tries to explain it. But the setup is that he's in this restaurant, and he's like very easily annoyed, much like very Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of way, where it's like I think one of the quotes from that show from his wife is like, not everyone knows your rules, okay? You're gonna have to put up with some things about people. And he's in this restaurant, and there's this kid who's like making a bunch of noise, and like it's just like like he's like, he can't get over it, and then he turns around, or no, he tries to get the waiter to like quiet them down.
I asked them to be quiet.
And as he leaves, he turns around and he realizes, I think this kid's autistic or something. And he's like, oh shoot. And a reporter immediately is like on his tail, and like just like scouting him out, and he like keeps taking all of his like quotes, and he's like, you can't say anything nowadays, can you? And like his like his motivation is to like just like make it as sensational as possible. And everyone who talks about it, like it just keeps getting worse and worse, because they're like, well, I can't confirm this, but like I'm sure I think he like pushed the mom out of the way or something. And like it just keeps getting like so terrible. And when Stephen Merchant tries to explain the situation, like how it happened, he's like also misquoting it horribly.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where he's like, well, I mean, can you blame him? Like, he was being loud and annoying, and like, I don't think autistic people should be like, in the same room with like all these with like normal people. It's like saying the worst things possible.
Yeah.
And that's another thing about the show is like the humor hasn't aged poorly. Like, there's a lot people. I don't subscribe to the narrative nowadays of like, oh, humor's dead. You can't say anything nowadays. You can't make of minorities as easily. No. Like, people complain about it, therefore, like, I'm being censored. It's like, that's not the same thing. But like, the humor in this show hasn't aged poorly because the characters are constantly embarrassed and humiliated for their prejudices. Yeah. And it shows that like, what they said is bad, and they're suffering the reasonable consequences for what they said. Mm-hmm. And like, there's still a way to do this. It's not like all these like topics should be taboo. Like, like nowadays, even in the worst kind of like watered down humor that comes from like, the MCU or like pretty much mostly Disney, for being honest. But like, just that kind of like, oh, we're too scared to say anything or portray anyone who's not, straight white male in a bad light. We can't we can't be honest about like how people act. It's like, in this show, it's like, there's a way to do it where it's like, I don't hate any of the minorities or like like different characters in the show, because like everyone's just like horribly like socially inept a lot of the time, and it comes from just basic humanity.
Not a place of just like
superiority,
like just ignorance and dumbassery.
like it's not that kind of like Seth MacFarlane like oh, I'll just make fun of anyone and like I'm the only smart person. Anyone who's like even a little bit like right wing, you have to be like the most extreme like liberal ever. You're just a fucking idiot. Like it's not that shouldn't be where like your basis of like comedy comes from, is like I'm smarter than everyone. It's like, no, you can just point out like embarrassing things that like people do. And there's a poise to it. You can like a certain movie I don't want to bring up by name recently. You do want to be well researched in the people you're portraying if you're not part of that group. But like I don't think that's like that it should be just like eradicated from all of art. And it isn't. It really isn't if you're like actually watching things outside of like the most advertised stuff. Like of course they're gonna like if your only basis of like entertainment is Marvel, then like you're gonna think that all movies are terrible nowadays. But that really isn't the case. You just have to look for it, and it's pretty easy to find. You just got to be aware of that kind of stuff. And that's just what it plays into the strengths of the show just so well. I think that's about everything I wanted to say about it. There are plenty of episodes that we didn't touch up upon, but I think it's mainly just I think people should watch it firsthand and see how it plays out. It's
definitely. And like I said, I mean, it's a short show, so I mean, it doesn't go. I wouldn't say it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go too many places, and it's pretty straightforward. And like I said, the only problem I had was just the beginning. It's kind of getting used to it, but then I think it kind of ramps up. Not only with the jokes, but also the plots and the things he gets involved with. Like I said, the first episode is just him trying to get a line, and then later on, there's a whole episode of him like trying to dodge this guy because he doesn't want to hang out with him, just because he kind of promised to hang out with him at some point, like vaguely.
He's like strong-armed into it because like he won't leave him alone.
and stuff like that. It's just really well done, and all the celebrity cameos are really funny, and like there's not a whole lot of downtime or anything like you said that's aged poorly. Everything is just really tightly written and well written, and just cleverly done. And I got a lot of enjoyment out of this show, and I did not mind watching it like 2-3 times I watched it. It also helps that it's like short. Like every episode's like 30 minutes, and there's only like 12 episodes. Really funny, and really good recommendation.
Thanks. You want to get into ratings?
Yeah, I can give my rating here. I really enjoyed the show. Really funny. There is a lot of potential in this show, and I wish it had gotten longer. But yeah, that's kind of my only problem with it. I think I'd give this like a 8 out of 10. Like really good. I would like watch this. I don't know if I'd. No, I'd watch it a third time. I just yeah, I'd watch this a third time. Yeah, really good, really solid writing. I wish it got on longer. Really, really funny.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. 8 out of 10. It's aged pretty well, honestly, and like a lot of celebrity, culture that like carries over into nowadays. You'll, like I said, like the kind of weird overlap between his character and Kevin Hart. Just like a decade later, it's like this shit still happens, and it's hilarious to see. And yeah, it's not only funny, but it has a good amount to say. And watching his character's journey was always engaging, and I would say I liked it like right off the bat. Like I guess if you're going off of like typical American comedies, I could get how like kind of like the curve of getting into it, which is like totally fine. But I think it only gets better. Like, and it already started off pretty strong for me. So yeah, 8 out of 10. And we're on to our next recommendation.
Recommendation number 2
from Adrian.
Yeah, from me. I recommended this movie last time. I hadn't seen this movie in a while. I'd say like when did this movie come out?
2016.
2016. I watched it like a little bit after it came out, like 2017-ish. So I hadn't seen this movie in like 7 or 8 years. And I remember originally watching this, and originally it was like a movie I would say was up there in one of my favorite movies at a certain point. Now I don't feel the same way, and I'm glad I rewatched it. It's A Silent Voice from 2016, about a kid named Shoya who bullies a deaf girl when he's in elementary school, and that eventually leads to her leaving school, everyone blaming him, and him kind of getting the bullying reversed back onto him for a long time. And then he tries to reconnect with her 7-8 years later when he's like 17, 18, and tries to kind of make up for his mistakes. And yeah, like I said, this movie deals with a lot of personal stuff that I think a lot of teenagers can kind of relate to.
Oh yeah,
and understand. And I think just a lot of people kind of in our generation can really understand. Like, I feel like I've met a lot of people who've kind of thought the way he thinks in this movie, and a lot of the self-deprecation and just self-hate that he gives himself. I think a lot of people can relate to. I think that's why I related to it a lot at the time when I watched it initially, and I still kind of do. I still feel like there are certain points where he says things and I'm like, damn, man, I've literally said that to myself before. Like, it's kind of wild. For side note, I did watch it dubbed.
So did I. It's just an anime in my life.
Yeah. I just thought I'd say that because I know some people. I'm not one of those people that you got to do either or. I'd say just watch whatever the hell you want to watch for whatever reason. Yeah, watch what you like. Yeah, I don't think it really matters. Anyways, yeah. I think this is. I thought it was really good. Like I said, I hadn't seen it in a long time, so it's nice to get a different perspective after kind of living life a little more and seeing things from a different angle. I also like how this movie deals with a lot of heavy topics, like I said earlier, self-hatred, suicide, bullying, forgiveness, redemption, and it's still like a very cutesy movie. Very cute, very wholesome 100. Give this the wholesome 100 award. Even though it does deal with some heavy topics, it doesn't kind of, I wouldn't say drag the movie down, just it's not a very heavy movie. Like too much. Maybe at certain points.
I'd say it's fairly balanced. And, and it gets, even when it's like shocking, it gets, there's like ample justification for like tonal shifts, but most of it is like fairly cutesy. I'd say like 60%.
Yeah.
it does have a decent amount of
Yeah,
like,
and I think
depressing
that
stuff going
does
on.
have a lot to do with the subject matter, which, like I said, is just like self-worth and perception of how you see yourself and other people. Because one of the big things is the big visual thing throughout the whole movie is all the X's on people's faces.
Yeah.
How he kind of just doesn't really perceive people as being there. Like they're just not in his world, I guess. Like, and there's this. They make a very visual point, and this is what I really like about this movie. It's a very visual movie. Ironically, I don't think a lot of like anime movies, ironically, being animated, put a lot into like the visual, like I guess directing and cinematography aspect of that. And there's a lot of shots of him looking down or looking below people's like kind of chest, looking at their legs, or just not looking at them. And that's so not only visualized in a lot of the filmmaking, but just like the big X's on people's faces. And when he does start to connect with people and actually make friends, those X's kind of fall off, and they kind of like are brought into his little bubble that he's made for himself.
Yeah,
and they say that a lot. That like, it is partly his own bullying experience, but it's also like himself. He also kind of isolates himself intentionally.
Yeah,
to kind of not be hurt again. And I think it's really well shot and well presented. Yeah, it's very well presented, that aspect of the movie.
Yeah, it was reminding me a lot of Anomalisa, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. How he sees everyone, and like the X's are like these people who are like off limits to him. Like he's like, I can't even begin to talk to them. Like they're just like people he won't even allow himself to interact with. And Anomalisa has like a similar thing where it's a stop motion movie where everyone outside of the main character is someone with the exact same face, and it's how he doesn't really see them as individuals. It's a similar but different issue where like he can like talk to people fine, but like he doesn't make meaningful connections. And in this movie it's more like kind of someone, the main character is more like someone who doesn't feel like he deserves like relationships because of how much of an asshole he was as a kid.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that like hit pretty hard for me. Like there's a lot of stuff I regret just like growing up, and like I'm sure I'm not the only one, but just that like main character syndrome where like because you think you're like the main character of your own story, that like that you're like a good person, and you kind of just like justify in your head like without thinking like oh, I'm not in the wrong here, and then like you look back and you realize, oh, like I think I was a bully actually. Like I wasn't pushing people around because like media presents bullies in this way where it's like, oh, it's it's the popular person, or it's the bigger person,
the jock,
the
blonde jock guy.
I'm not any of those things, so obviously I'm not an asshole. And just the reconciliation with your past self, and how it does feed into how like he feels like he doesn't deserve like he doesn't see himself as a good person when like he has in fact improved since then. And he was a kid reasonably where like kids are fucking awful sometimes. and the stuff he did in the past was definitely bad, but like it's hard to separate that from yourself as you grow up, where you're like you realize that you were in the wrong, and like you're constantly improving, and you'll still come across things about yourself that like you need to work on, but like that doesn't make you like a bad person anymore. And it's important to keep that part of yourself in check. And I really got a lot out of him discovering that through other people who just like didn't know him, or like by the time they heard about it, they're like, I mean, I've never, it doesn't matter now, or like it doesn't, not necessarily that, but like you're clearly not that person anymore. Having said that, I think half of like the side characters are like kind of useless. They did not develop them well enough. I understand this is based off of a manga, so like it makes sense that like a longer running series would have a lot of characters with stuff to do. But in this, it was like, by the time I'm just looking at this poster and like some of them, I'm like, oh yeah, you were.
Who's that again?
Yeah, you're like, what are you doing pretending like you're like in the main cast? It's like you said like 2 things. I think it's like people will show up and then drop out after a long time, and
that's definitely my kind of biggest problem with the movie is that it does kind of try, kind of like what you said, to redeem him through his connections and kind of making up for the past, not only with him going back and meeting with Shoko, the girl he bullies, but also just kind of expanding his social circle and like becoming like a stronger person. But yeah, it doesn't really show off a lot of those characters a whole lot. Like you said, like some of them get maybe like 10 lines maybe.
Yeah.
And but because the main crux of the movie, or at least the main relationship, is between him and the girl. And I don't think that left a whole lot of room for like everybody else, except for like the like little fat side character, like his best friend, like fat friend, like every like guys, every like goddamn, there's such like a cliche where you have like the like funny fat friend.
Yeah,
and that's kind of all his role is to be, is like fat and funny.
Yeah.
Like her, and then like Shoko's sister, like the only 2 side characters that get like a whole lot of like either screen time or like lines saying, or, and even out of those 2, Shoko's sister is like the only one who actually gets any kind of like development, or like, I don't want to say character, but yeah, like character, like
they feel more fleshed out.
They feel more like fleshed out. Yeah. They do try to do try to do it with a couple like the god damn it, they all have fucking Japanese names. I can't remember their names. Shoko's friend they meet later on in the movie that goes to like a different school. It's like the tall, like short-haired girl. Like they kind of try to do something with her.
Is that the bully?
Of, like, no, that's not the bully girl. It's the other one. It's the like taller one.
Yeah. I remember, but I can't remember.
Yeah. Where they try to make, kind of have her have her own like little arc where it's about like kind of bravery and like kind of standing up for people and not running away from situations. And yeah, but you only get that like a little bit. You get drip feed. It's really, really focused on the 2 main leads, and I think that's something I really like about the movie. And then some that's just like its biggest crux as well, is that it just gives nobody else any kind of like time to really develop or show their relations to like everybody else, like how their like character relates to the larger like story of the movie. Because it really is kind of hyper focused on them just kind of them two. Yet that I really just like the relationship of the 2 main characters. It's just, I think they have really good like chemistry, and they're really the same side of like the 2 of the same sides of the same coin.
Yeah,
like where they like kind of just are both like very self-loathing, like attack themselves, like low self-esteem kind of people.
Yeah.
For 2 kind of different reasons, but like they just have that same perception of themselves. And I think their relationship is really what just holds up the movie. And I also really appreciate that like it's not just that they like each other, because it's not really it's like kind of like a romance, but not really. It's just how they interact with each other and what they kind of do for each other, and how they change each other and make each other better. And yeah, there is that like romance aspect to it, but that's not kind of like the main crux of it. It's really just him trying to redeem himself and her trying to, I guess, like herself a little more.
Yeah,
but that's kind of what they're both trying to do, just like themselves.
Yeah, and respect themselves as people, and also like come to show that like how much they've in the male character's case, he's Shoya, right?
Shoya.
Shoya. In Shoya's case,
and I think that's purposeful too, just how they have similar names. Yeah, Shoko and Shoya.
How he comes to like develop his self-respect and treat others properly, And in Shoko's case, like, she's, you know, been alienated like her entire life, like unintentionally. How like everyone like just like made fun of her, and how she felt like she was just kind of like intrinsically unable to properly relate to people outside of her immediate family. So there's like an unintentional like self-hatred thing going on there, and then there's like a self-inflicted self-hatred thing with Shoya's character. I like not only with the visual metaphor with the X's on people's faces, but like there are a few like kind of like insert shots that I don't know if I'm just like reading into them a little too far, but like I think like they had some like pretty like quietly significant moments. There's a part where they're like, there's obviously the like Koi River, right? And how like that word is also like a double meaning for like shy. And how like they're able to like make their connection on that bridge, and like that's like kind of a big theme in the movie. Like they keep returning back to that bridge, and dealing with it, and you know, just like improving from that. And then there's this other one at the park where like there's just like this random shot of like a few trees and like one lamppost, and that kind of like showed him like inserting himself with like these people that he's like basically like they're all visually similar, a lamppost and like these trees, but like he's an outlier. And I kind of liked how that was like him trying to get used to it. Like he doesn't feel like he belongs with them, and like he's finding it hard to like organically like fit in with them after like so long.
Kind of like just live in the moment, and not just constantly think about, I guess, himself and just how he shouldn't be there and how he shouldn't be. And he even says that like, oh, should I be having this much fun? Should I be enjoying this? Like I don't think I should be. And but I don't think you're reading into that too much. Like I said, I think a lot of this movie is like visuals, and I think that goes with her being deaf and how she can't hear anything. So a lot of, you know, perception and a lot of things she sees, it's all just visual. Like there's a lot of good visuals, like kind of I like a lot of the kind of dreamscape-esque, like abstract visuals they place between like the initial flashback sequence and when they go kind of jump into where he's at right now. I think or at the end of the beginning where they have the visual of like the really, really small like light in like a whole like screen of just like darkness. And how at the end it kind of is like pulled to like a full view of the light. And I think all that is like very purposeful.
You want to talk about the best character?
Which one would that be?
The I don't know her name. The black-haired girl.
Oh yeah,
that, like never progressed.
Yeah.
Probably got worse actually.
No, and that's probably another big thing. I can kind of see what they were going for that, where just some people are just don't care, and some people just don't change. And yet they kind of just do these like loops in their head to just like validate themselves. That like, oh, I was never in the wrong. Like kind of like I was always right. Like I had a right to be mean to you, like because I don't like you, and it's usually some just kind of arbitrary like selfish like reason. And she's just kind of like a bitch the whole time, and that's kind of her character. She's just like the bitch character.
It was. I could see what they were going for with her, because like she says some like biting things. Like I think there's something along the lines of like, I can't bring myself to like you, and I was like, oh my god, like like I've kind of felt like that way towards people without saying that out loud, and it's like terrible. But like what kind of like takes me out of it is that like she's like so blunt, like when she tears into like this deaf girl, and it gets to the point where like she like beats her up at a certain point. I'm like, I don't know if like this is like as reasonable anymore as like as a realistic person, because it was doing so well with like all these other characters. It's like it doesn't really have that like, I don't know, I don't feel like I need to give it that like anime excuse
Yeah.
Because like she's like specifically just like blatantly the worst person ever.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of Mike from Red Letter Media is like, stop fucking talking, internalize. But yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I guess there's some like aspects to her character that like I can see, but like it goes a little too far outside of the realm of like reasonability almost.
Yeah, like I do like how I'd say sometimes she's the voice of like logic, like kind of pointing out what's the word, fuck, I can't think of words today. What the fuck is going on?
Pointing out
like pointing out the
oh, like maybe his like motivations.
Like how they're like, yeah, his like motivations and like how they're like friends, but like she kind of just points out that she thinks he's just like, it's just pity. It's just out of like,
he's like trying to do it to make himself feel better.
Make him feel better, and that's something that's also brought up a lot in the movie that I think they deal with pretty well, and especially near the end, because that is a lot of the movie is him trying to redeem himself, trying to make up for what he's done. And I think at the end he really learns that like it's not about just doing things or like taking her out to a bunch of places and trying to make her feel good, because by the scene near the end that obviously didn't work, and I think that's the whole point of that scene. I'm talking about the fireworks suicide scene where she does try to kill herself, which I think is another good kind of dichotomy mirror, because that's how they begin the movie. It is him trying to kill himself, and I think really the point of that was to show that like it's not just through actions alone, it's not just through trying to be nice. Now it comes, real change and real progression comes from actual like emotional like maturity and like actually changing as people, opposed to just like just doing things because you feel bad for them. And I think that's just really well shown and well written in that instance, and just that scene in general is really like kind of heart pounding and nail biting. Even when I watched it again, like recently for this recommendation, like I still got a little anxious, even though I know what happens. I still got a little anxious seeing that, because they make a point, and again that just goes to what I said earlier, but the visuals, like they're just so that they know how to they show things visually very well. Like when she leaves the kind of the fireworks show to go home, like he says he signs like a see you later, and I believe she signs like a goodbye instead of like a see you later. And then the whole showing of him walking back to their apartment, and them kind of slowly showing him go up these stairs and kind of show the height of where he's going, and doing that purposefully. Because it's it goes into her jumping 5 minutes later. And just his struggle to stop her, and how he tries to and then hits the fucking table and like falls over, and he just and again it's just all set up very 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 well, and like just made me very anxious. And then it's all that more triumphant when like they show that he caught her. I think that's just, the visuals in this movie are just like really really good, and really well done, and very purposeful, and feed into like scenes. And I just don't, I've seen a lot of anime movies that just don't really, ironically, because though they're animated, they don't really take full advantage of like cinematography and like showing things, or like foreshadowing and like showing things and stuff.
I guess another thing I wanted to bring up was that while the music is pretty great for most of it, that scene where, okay, I think it's Yuki is her name, where she is beating up Shoko, it's like there's this really inappropriate like chipper music in the background, and it's like it's already like kind of a ridiculous situation, and then like that, and it doesn't really give off the impression that it's like trying to be silly, and it's like it's just like really distracting. And I was just like watching, I was like, what? I don't think this was like the best way he could have like showed this, or like like it would have been better like without music entirely. I think it would have been able to take it a little bit more seriously. But like that was just like the one instance in the entire movie that was like, because like the soundtrack is great. It was like just like really distracting.
And I know what you're talking about, and I think from our first trying to record and then now this, I've had time to actually read the manga that it's based off of, and now reading that actually I think gave me a lot better perspective on a lot of the things they were trying to do in this movie. Though it does make the movie feel even more rushed to me. Because in that scene between that and the manga, it's supposed to be kind of more, I guess, like triumphantly and more like these are the characters changing a little bit, but they do kind of change the scene like a lot and leave out a lot of like context. So I think that's where a lot of that is like kind of lost between kind of the adaptation and like the movie. But like that, I think that's kind of, at least in the manga, that's what they were trying to go for, and I think that's what they were trying to go for. Just like they just did not have enough of the previous writing, especially on certain characters, like the mom character. Like the Shoko's mom is a lot bigger character in the manga opposed to the movie. And that was more supposed to be like a bigger scene for her, but kind of loses its impact. You know, with a lot of her scenes, if not most of her scenes, like cut out from the actual movie. But I do see that in a couple of scenes, especially scenes near the end, and that it does still have that like kind of anime dramatization to it. You know, like when they have that big like dream sequence, which I also really liked, the dream sequence near the end where they're kind of like going through like the different places they've been, and like it's like she's having this conversation with him, and it's really about them kind of almost thinking the same way, and him also kind of giving up on his life. A little bit where he says before she wakes up that like I was thinking of killing myself, but then she wakes up and then she has like this dramatic run to like the bridge where they go, and she's oh like fucking the music is like swelling up and supposed to be this like big dramatized like kind of moment, and it's still, like I said, it still has stuff like that, but I think is a lot more mature in some of the writing and in some aspects opposed to like other anime movies or other anime just in general. And like I said, this movie really relies on their relationship, and I just think the way they showed it is just like really, really strong. And I see myself getting lost in their relationship, and kind of how they fold in onto each other, and just like I said, the little visual aspects, like near the beginning she runs away from him and tries to hide like below the stairs, but he grabs onto like the railing, and she like feels it. She can't hear him because she's deaf, but she feels it. And then later near the end with the bridge scene that I was just talking about, she's crying at the spot where they meet up, and he fucking like crawls out of the hospital and like runs over there, and also like kind of lands on the little railing, and she feels it again. It's just a little shit like that I really appreciate and really, really like, and I think really fits this movie very well. I
think the English dub was like mostly pretty good. There was one part that was like completely lost in translation. That was like I'm not faulting the movie itself, because like it was it was an English dub. It was like adapting to that basically, but like the part where she says out loud that she loves him, and he can't understand it, it's like the most clear thing ever. Whereas like I can understand that like being in Japanese, like relating to like a different word easier, because like I get that they were trying to communicate like, oh, it's rhyming with something, and he's like, oh, the moon, like what's so
yeah,
but it's like yeah, that like that was a
yeah,
that's on the English people for that.
And that's, I think that's more just like kind of like what you said, just a lost in translation kind of thing, that you can't really avoid like when you translate something into English, because it's based off like someone else's language, you know.
Yeah, it was just like a specific moment.
I still like that scene.
It's a good scene.
The cute little like convention scene, but like it does lose a little bit of the oomph to it. And but you said, like I said, or like what you said, I kind of recognized instantly that like, okay, I think that was supposed to be more like a kind of in Japanese kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's like, I mean, yeah, it's a little, she's deaf, so, which I did also learn recently that they actually got a deaf actress to dub her in the or at least in the English dub. They got someone who was deaf to like say her lines and the very little lines that she actually says, because most of the time she's signing, which I also thought was well like animated and well shown, especially because I actually took ASL in high school, and I could tell the little difference because they're speaking Japanese sign language opposed to like American sign language, and there's just more like symbol based, but there's still stuff like that's the same, like see you later or bye or stuff like that. But
yeah, it was more of a language thing than like a presentation thing. She did a good job, but yeah, it has a very good heart to it that kept me interested all the way through. Although around the hour 30-minute mark, I was like, oh no, there's 40 more minutes of this. And that's when the attempted suicide part happens from Shoko, and that kind of like defibrillates the story a little bit.
Because they really try, like we were saying earlier, the biggest problem with the movie, I think, is the side characters. And so like when they have this big like breakup where they all kind of like,
it's pretty like tropey,
and they all kind of like just like
didn't last very long either.
But when they all kind of break up as friends, have this big fight and separate, and that's kind of supposed to be the low point of the movie. I think a lot of that is lost because it's just like who the fuck are these people even? Like half these people I barely even know, and they've been friends for like 20 minutes, and so like now we're supposed to like care that they're breaking up now. Again, I think that just comes with them kind of hyper focusing on just Shoko and Shoya.
They kind of needed to like cut out entire characters at this runtime.
Either cut out or just make the movie a little longer and give them
like serialize it
to do. I think maybe this would have been better if like a 20 episode anime opposed to like just like a 2-hour movie, to give everyone proper time.
It's like just on the cusp of like what it needed to be, which was like either closer to the manga where like all the characters have proper attention, or like in a concise movie where like you focus on the actual like main two, like,
and that's it. Like that one fucking redhead guy. Literally in the movie for like 5 minutes, maybe gets like 3 lines. And then he's
like,
also
how dare you show up on the poster?
He also shows up in that scene, and it's supposed to be this big like, oh, well, we're not really friends. And he's like, damn, and then he fucking just walks off, and then again it loses also its punch later when they all like reunite again. I think, I mean, it's nice, it's nice and cute and cool, but I think lives a lot of the oomph it could have had if like they were all genuine, if they gave them a lot more character, and then they finally come back and start being friends again. And
honestly, the part with the white hair kid where like he runs into him randomly after all those years, like he has that like he remembers like who he was like as a kid. That was like a much more like memorable, powerful character than like most of them. And he doesn't even like, it's like true. It's like a lot of people will just remember you for how you were, and they won't necessarily like you still. And I liked how that was presented, because it was like a nuanced you can't like please everyone. You can't undo everything that you've done. Especially like there wasn't really anything to gain out of just like like going back to that, right? There's some people
Yeah.
from my past that I don't dislike, but like I just don't want to remember that person that I was.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought that was a really well done scene. Like
Mm-hmm.
he was just like a random vendor, and
Yeah.
it's just like this really short, bitter moment between them, and it's like, oof.
Yeah, it's just kind of those old pains,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I think that again, that all goes back into the ending of the movie, which or at least what I think it means, is kind of just the change through your character and change through how you act and how you are, opposed to just trying to
letting go of the past and like
like dwelling on it and
yeah,
like putting yourself down, like or even just like all you do to make up for it is try to be nice or try to try to do these things that you think will this will balance it out. This will cancel out the bad I did. This good that I do is going to cancel out the bad, which doesn't really equate to actual change and actual like improvement, which I think is what they more harken on. What's more important is like actual change, emotionally and mentally, opposed to just dwelling on the past or just thinking, oh, I can do this and this will just make up for it, or this will just be, this is all I need to do. It's just this and that's what'll make me happy. What will make me better. But that's really not how it works.
So yeah, do you have anything else to say about it? I think I'm kind of ready for ratings.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and give your rating.
Yeah, really strong characters, main characters. Yeah, definitely pretty much should have like cut out entire side characters, not all of them, but like a few to where like I think the movie would have been paced a lot more smoothly. I understand like that it is a slice of life anime and like it's not necessarily about like progressing a plot in the like you have to like let it soak in and you like see how these characters are changing subtly as opposed to like events that happen like or turning points for like just constant like important things. It's like a lot of it is just them hanging out, and I respect that, but I think if it were shorter it probably would have helped, or if it were like if all those characters were just as interesting as the main characters, then it would have warranted like being like a mini series or something. But as it is, it's like kind of in this awkward in between. That's like it's clearly got a lot of meat on the bones, but like it's just like kind of paced in a way that like I don't really like want to return to so immediately as much as I liked it. Yeah, there's some just like larger than life characters that like would probably fit somewhere else, but like in this one they were like not necessarily fitting the tone of the movie enough. It like stepped out of the realm of plausibility for me, and I think if they handled that with a little bit more care it would have also strengthened it. So yeah, I respect it a lot. I will definitely be watching it again, but for now I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, which is like a positive, definitely above average.
Like how you have to explain that.
That's I have to preface it so it doesn't come off as no, I liked it. It's just like I think
you know what, you're nitpicking and biased and you're wrong. I have to tell people that a lot. Like it's just like, I mean 6 is good. It's good. It's a good number.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's bad.
And it just like goes to show like there are movies that have done this that have connected with me personally more. That's all that means. Above average means that it's definitely good. It's not average. It's not like it wasn't boring. It was just like there were certain parts of the movie that like they had more potential that they didn't like kind of touch up on, and I think that that does go into like how it was adapted from the manga. Yeah. And but yeah, overall positive experience. What did you think?
Like I said, I thought it was great. I think I liked this movie, or like had this movie personally in my like personal favorite top 10 movies in it for a reason, for like a really long time. I don't know, it might get close to the top 10, but maybe not crack my personal top 10 anymore. but I still really like it. I'm really, like I said, I really was into their relationship and, how they, were just kind of two sides of the same coin, and how they related to each other. And not all the side characters are great, but I still liked like some of them, like Shoko's little sister, and even the little fat funny guy. He was funny.
Yeah.
The animation was great. It just gave a lot of good visuals that I just don't see in a lot of things, especially anime. And I just really related and connected with the two main leads. And you're right. I think they could have wrote a lot of the side characters a lot better, and especially after reading the manga, just seeing the potential and everything that was kind of half-assed in the movie, I feel like they do, flesh out in the manga, and I don't know if it totally completely remedy everything that you had a problem with, but I think definitely after reading the manga, I had a different kind of take on the movie. But I still liked it. Still thought it was great. Very much recommended it, especially if you like anime or just like any kind of like cutesy, wholesome movie. Give this movie a 7 out of 10. Very wholesome, very cute, wholesome 100 award. But if you do want more and are looking for something more, definitely read the manga. 100% would recommend read the manga. But yeah, 7 out of 10 for me.
All right, and that'll wrap up this episode. And I think it's my turn for a recommendation.
Yes, it is. We have a recommendation from a Mr. Daniel today.
So I'm recommending Caught in the Net from 2020.
Okay.
It is... I just wanted, I feel like I've been too easy on myself recently. I just want to watch something fucked.
Okay.
Completely fucked up. And I'm not going to say what it's about. I just want you to like go into it cold and
okay.
Yeah, just strap yourself in. I don't know how far it's going to go. But I've heard very strong things about this. That's all I'll say about that.
Okay. All right. So watch. What was it again?
Caught in the Net.
Caught in the Net from
2020. Directed by Barbora Chalupova and Vitsklusek.
You probably said those like half right.
I think it's from Czech. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Then watch that.
It's from Czech. Does that make sense? It's spoken in Czech?
Czech. It is a Czech documentary made in Czech.
Is that like? I think it's from Spanish. I don't know if that's what I just said.
Made in Czech land or whatever the Czechoslovakia. So yeah.
Spoken in Mexican.
Yep. So watch that for the next episode, and I guess that's it from us.
Yeah.
See ya.
See ya.